us virtually by Teams. Regrettably, the rules of COVID dictate that we still must maintain our distances and to not have extra guests in the room in order to do that. And just for councillors, please, when you're speaking, speak loudly so that R2D2 in the middle here can pick up on you, given the distance that we're all having to be from each other this morning. We have an apology from Councillor Claridge. If somebody move those apologies be accepted. Thank you, Tamer. Seconded Shirley. In favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Confirmation of the minutes of our last meeting can be found on page 5, or the minutes themselves on page 6. Anybody have any issues with those? If not, somebody wants to move them as a true and correct record. Thank you, Ian. Seconded?
Stephen.
Stephen. Thank you, Stephen. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. A reminder to councillors to be vigilant and to stand aside from decision making when a conflict arises between their role as a member and any private or other external interest they might have, and a reminder to continually check and update your interests register and let the Government Secretary know if anything has changed. This brings us to the public forum part of our meeting today, and we have quite a number of people joining us via Teams for public forum. So firstly, we have Stu Calder, who will have 5 minutes with questions to follow, and we'll just see when Stu's going to come up on the screen.
He won't come up. He hasn't got a camera. He'll just.
Right. So you're there, Stu?
Yes, I am, Mr. Mayor. Yep.
We can hear you clearly. Right. The floor is yours, Stu.
Oh, well, good morning, Mr. Mayor, councillors and others present this morning. My name is Stuart Calder from Calder Surveying, and with me this morning is the applicant, Mr. Peter Shaw. Apologies, we don't have a camera here available. The applicant owns Cambrian Hills, which is a large farm adjoining the southern boundary of the unformed legal road in question today. Current formed access to the property is via Cambrian Road, approximately 1 kilometre to the north. The land south of the unformed legal road can be accessed through the farm via rough 4 drive tracks, circling the 140 hectare block, part sections 101, owned by Ottery Farms Limited. This route's approximately 2.5 to 3 kilometres to get to the part of the property at the southern end of the unformed legal road, which we're hoping to gain access to. The applicant has in the past been using the driveway through the Pickford-Carty property to gain occasional practical access, which in turn is via the formed unnamed legal road. Due to a number of factors, namely being some distance from the rest of the farm, the long, narrow shape of this portion of marginal land, and its proximity to the Cambrians Township, the applicant wishes to apply for a subdivision consent to create 2 lifestyle blocks on this land. The southern part of the strip of land is north facing with some private building platforms, and to enable an application to be made, access needs to be confirmed. An approach to the adjacent neighbours to the east, Mr. Pickford and Mr. Carty, to obtain a right-of-way over the existing well-formed track was rejected, so the formation of the unformed legal road is the only practical access left to the applicant. An application was made to council as required by Roading Policy Section 9 on the 17th of September this year to allow for the formation of the road, and the neighbours' concerns were noted. Mr. Pickford and Carty advised the applicant that they wish to see the location of the unformed legal road, and I visited the site and placed stakes along the centre line of the legal unformed road. I note the survey definition of the road location is very poorly defined. The first definition of the road was shown on ISO 7114, which is a mining plan dating back to 1882, which I've used to stake the road centreline. A later plan in ISO 7181 in 1905 shows the road in a very similar position, but not extending quite so far to the west along the southern boundary. A recent survey in 2019 has defined a right-of-way for stock through the Pickford-Carty property and has defined part of the northern end of the legal unformed road. Some further survey investigation will be undertaken to confirm the southern road boundary intersection with the applicant's land prior to any construction being undertaken. The unformed road alignment is through land that has previously been mined for coal, and evidence of part of the original track can still be seen along the northern part, while the rest has been destroyed by later mining and levelling of the southern paddock. There is a bank located in part of the road reserve, but with appropriate earthworks within the road reserve, it is deemed practical to form access. Other than the earthworked areas and cuts and fills, the adjoining owners will be able to freely cross the formed road to gain access to the land on either side of the legal road. Suitable sized culverts will be located in gullies under the proposed formation. On any grades steeper than 1 in 10, rock armoured water tables will be placed to prevent any scouring, and stormwater will be discharged to the natural gullies. Assuming approval is granted to form the legal road, the next step is to have an archaeological assessment done to ascertain the historical value within the road reserve to be formed. And once this report is completed and documented, subject to the expected outcome, given that most of the evidence has been destroyed, a subdivision application to create 2 additional titles will be applied for. Currently, there's an electric gate within the road reserve serving the Pickford-Cardy property, and it's proposed to relocate this to the southern boundary of the legal road on the alignment of their existing formed driveway. And this position and fencing was shown on a plan submitted with the application. Rather than to fence both sides of the legal road and therefore divide the existing large paddock, the applicant proposes to install cattle stop in both of the existing fence lines located along the southern and eastern boundary of section 102, which is the block the unformed legal road bisects. To allow for horse or stock movement, and additional gates to be provided beside each cattle stop, and a new fence will be required along both sides of the upper section of the unformed road within section 112 with additional stock gates. As part of the road design approval process for subdivision, the final position of the fencing and gate locations will be shown on the road design plan, and Mr. Pickford and Cardy are welcome to suggest whether they'd like their electric gate relocated on site. The formation of the unformed legal road will be to a right-of-way standard suitable for 2 dwellings, and I note the maintenance of the right-of-way within the legal road will be the responsibility of the applicant or successors entitled using the right-of-way for access. The existing formed track or formed road back to Cambrians needs some upgrading. We note that the lower part of this road is adjacent to land owned by a long-time resident, Mr. Robert Berry, who maintains the verge with plantings, etc. We think any widening along this flat scenic portion is unnecessary, although a passing bay could be incorporated if required. The steeper upper portion requires a grade and some metalling, which the applicant will undertake due to the additional traffic use proposed for the road. The applicant is happy with the proposed conditions outlined in the report dated 3rd of November 2021, although as noted before, condition 4 should be amended to include or successors in title. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Councillors, questions?
Yeah, Worship. I've got a couple, please.
Sorry, just if you could introduce yourself.
Neil Gillespie here, Mr. Calder. Just to clarify, the current access you said is off Cambrians Road, which, if I'm correct, goes off its alignment because Cambrians Road goes through a pond just before it gets to the land?
That's correct, yes. Yep.
So the applicant has no other lawfully formed access to the property at this stage?
No,
that
would be correct. I did actually notice that yesterday when I was looking at a photo, and I meant to go back and check and see if there's actually a reserve, a right of way over that formation, over the other piece where it does cross, but no. The other thing is, I guess, a road that's been maintained. Oh, sorry, I'll just ask that question on the maintaining of that part of the road. Peter, is that maintained by council, that track into your place and up to the dock reserve?
Yes.
It is.
Up to my side.
Yeah.
Just only about halfway up there is technically the council's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. No, so it's not maintained by council, the top end of it. So yes, this would, it is cut off from proper legal access, yes.
So that would mean that if for whatever reason those owners of that land were to say they don't want the road going across there anymore, and there might be some other issues about that, that form the current road would be difficult because there's a pond to go through.
Exactly, yes, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? All right, thank you very much. Stu and Pete. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move now on to Thomas Cardy.
Good morning. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, can hear you. Thank you, Thomas. Can you hear us all right?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Look, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors, for taking the time and giving me time to talk through this. I am the owner alongside Jamie Pickford, which is an apology today, of the property where the road is proposed to be put through. I've sent Rebecca a bit of a picture about where the road is going, which is sort of give a different perspective to what was submitted by Stuart. As you can see on the picture, there's access road that's currently coming through to the left of it. There's a fence in between, and then there's roughly where the road is proposed to go through the other parcel of land that we're on. I guess ultimately we're not opposed to the road being formed. What we are worried about here is there's a few things we're worried about. We're worried about a road being formed for no purpose in case the subdivision is not granted. The land next to us at the moment is zone rural, not rural residential or anything like that. And we would really like to avoid being in a position where a road gets constructed whereby there is full access right through our property for no purpose long term. We're more than happy to provide access for stock and farming purposes through our property. That we've done in the past. We've doing that with Orchard Farms Limited, who have an easement through our property, so that's no issue to us. But we wanted to avoid having access through there. We feel that the gardens that Robert Beery maintains, we was talking about before, do create a significant amount of traffic. The traffic quite regularly drive right through to our gate at the moment, sometimes all the way to our house. Despite the fact that we have an electric gate, it's not locked. And we feel that if this road was to be formed, we will end up in a similar position with people driving through right to the end, just to have a look, because that's what people do. And when a road there, you just go to the end to have a look through. Ultimately, I mean, it's going to be the council's decision today, but we would like the road to be, if granted, to be conditional of the resource consent being granted for the subdivision next to us. So it's sort of tied in together, so we don't end up with the position I was talking about. Stuart's covered a bit of what I was going to talk about, which is about some of the upgrades required on the existing track, because the road to our gate is currently not maintained by the council. That stops down at the bottom of at 149 where the gardens are. Plus the little boxes, there's no maintenance at all happening currently from the council. We've asked for it, but because we're the only dwelling, or there's two dwellings serviced by it, we don't meet that requirement. Cattle stops are sort of an issue for us. I had a discussion with James, the riding manager, about it. We've got horses, so we would like another solution if that was to go forward. And again, there needs to be a discussion about a turning area on the road at the end, because if the road finishes on our property, what happens with people driving around? We have people coming on private property, four-wheel drives, things like that, and that's a concern to us for stock and I guess for our normal enjoyment of the property. The photo is taken from our land, give or take, and we feel that it will have a significant impact on us if that was to be built. It would be a bit like having a two-lane motorway. When we purchased two pieces of broom block that we spent the last 7 years clearing and parked ourselves at the end of a dead end road, and yeah, it's having a significant impact on us at the moment and keeping us awake at night a wee bit. So I don't really have a lot more to say than that. Understand the legal implications of having illegal paper roads through your land, and happy to run with that, but just trying to avoid finding a situation where a road's built for no purpose.
Thank you, Thomas. Questions, councillors? Tracy.
Hi there, Tracy Patterson here. Just with regards to your comment about an alternative to a cattle stop,
yeah.
Have you got any other alternatives to a cattle stop?
Standard gate is fine. A standard gate will be fine.
The gate on the roadway?
Yeah.
I don't know what the legality of that are. So.
Neil.
Neil Gillespie, Thomas. If the road was formed through your property, would you then need to fence the boundaries either side?
Yeah, that's also a concern for us. We haven't really got a budget for that at the moment, and we will probably look at fencing it if that was to be built.
How long would that fencing be? It's just a bit hard to tell from the aerial. How many metres?
I don't know, actually, to be completely honest. Maybe Stuart will have an answer for that. It will be probably a good 600 to a kilometre, I suspect.
Any other questions, councillors? All right, thank you very much, Thomas.
Thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated.
Right, our next presenters, Janet McDonald and Jill Booth. Councillors, you'll remember last meeting I presented a number of signed petitions, and I have gone back to Janet and Jill to offer them to come and speak to those and to update us on any further. At the time we received those, I have them here. So funny, I didn't notice that box there. There's an awful lot there, isn't there? So the floor is yours. Welcome. Hello, Janet and Jill. We can see half of Jill, I think.
Hello there.
Here we are.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll
Janet,
go into this.
Can you just position your computer just a little so we can see both of you?
I'm not in it.
You're
I'm not
in it?
speaking,
Okay.
I'm leaving this to Janet.
Jill would
Okay, thank
rather
you.
not be in the picture.
Janet's doing the speaking, so yeah.
Right, fire away, Janet.
Okay, thank you. We are happy to have the opportunity to speak today, but disappointed that we can't all meet together under the same roof. It seems that for whatever reasons, democracy is getting further and further out of the public's reach. We are here representing the 731 signatories to our Three Waters feedback form, requesting that Central Otago District Council pauses the rush transfer of water asset management, carries out proper consultation, including public meetings, and holds a binding referendum as to whether to opt in or out of Three Waters. The government promised that there would be time for such consultation and councils would have the ability to opt in or out of Three Waters. This undertaking has since been torn away. As this is arguably the biggest issue to face local government in New Zealand in 30 years, we dispute the assertion that the government has a mandate to bring this in without proper consultation with local residents, and as such, we find it unacceptable. Our feedback polling represents the tip of the iceberg of those concerned about Three Waters legislation. These signatures readily came to us with almost no prompting except for us providing the opportunity. Petitions calling for the consultation and even the complete removal of Three Waters legislation have circulated with tens of thousands of signatures. Our respondents have added their voices and we thank and congratulate them for taking the time to do so. We now have our answer to the status of public consultation and the implementation of Three Waters. We do not accept the bypassing of the promised democratic process of consultation, and neither should you. You need to ask yourselves whether or not you have the inclination and energy to get off the fence and follow the footsteps of councils that are speaking out against what now can only be viewed as an affront to democracy. This also goes for council staff as well. The cost of consultation might have been high, but what will the cost of the Three Waters pathway be? Do you really think that water costs will decrease under the proposed convoluted, top-heavy bureaucracy? Will it really be efficiently run remotely? Will it properly serve local people? Will the cost be the eventual centralisation of all services provided by councils and the destruction of local input and local democracy? As the people of Central Otago elected representatives, it is not good enough to throw your hands in the air and say we cannot do anything about it. The council is the house of the people, so represent us. We implore you not to roll over, but join together with other councils that are against this. This will require you to be brave, pause, stall and push back. Regardless of what you decide, we still expect full disclosure of government plans as they unfold and transparent consultation and discussion, including town hall meetings. It may seem that all is lost following the government's recent move to bring in Three Waters without the promised consultation. We believe this is not the end of the matter and that giving up is not an option. Continued public pressure is the only way forward. We hope you will join us and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Janet. Councillors, questions for Janet? Neil.
Yeah, Neil Gillespie here, Janet. I'm not trying to be smart, but I'd really like to know how a councillor or any other individual can actually oppose or reject legislation.
I think that there's a huge outcry and there'll be public protests, and I think that it's important that it is slowed down and there is some sort of consultation amongst other councils to see what can be done. I think that if it can be slowed down eventually, that some sort of change might still happen, and public pressure does affect governments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. I'm not seeing any other questions from councillors. This we did cover at our last meeting the Three Waters amongst as part of the meeting, and it's likely, even though we have no decision to be made, I'm sure there'll be some discussion later on today in some stage of the meeting about how councillors feel about what's been imposed upon us and the community. So thank you for your input to it today, and thank you to Jill hiding there in the background somewhere.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I hope you have a good discussion later on.
Is that a public discussion or behind closed doors?
Sorry, what was that?
Is that a public discussion that you're having, or will that be on the live stream, or are you guys, because it is contentious, we understand it. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. I thought that might be.
Probably, it's a bit hard to judge, but it'll probably be during my mural report, which is going to be, it says 1:40 on our run sheet, but you can imagine how flexible that is. So early afternoon.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have Hugh by phone.
Right, so just Hugh, or is John joining us?
Hugh, you can ask Hugh.
Righty-ho. So now we move to Hugh Mcintyre and perhaps Don Sparks. Hugh, you're on phone. Do you have Don with you? Hold fire a moment, folks. You're right. I don't know how you do what you do, so just keep doing it.
Just take a minute to agree with it. Hugh, we're working on it. I'm just changing the setting. Can you try and allow her to present, Wayne?
Yeah, I'm fine.
He's shaking his head.
Yeah. Perhaps if you ring him, Wayne. Hugh, we're going to try and ring you. No, in the room. In the room and on speaker.
Okay.
Hi, is that you, Hugh? Sorry, we're having to do it like this. Hopefully this will work.
Right.
Right, hello Hughes, Tim Cadogan here. Sorry that we're having some technical issues. is Don with you, or is it just yourself?
Yes, no, Don's right with me. So good morning, Mayor and councillors.
Good morning. Fire away. The floor is yours.
Yep. Good morning to the Mayor and the councillors. As you hopefully are aware, we sent you out a paper on Monday night because we felt that 5 minutes wasn't enough to sort of cover what we wanted to do. So having done that, personally, I don't really have much more to say. I'm not sure whether Don wants to say anything or.
No, not really. I just trust that the councillors have read through that and understand our response.
Yes, absolutely. We have all received it and read it and understand the points you're making. So my reading of that email was you'd rather just have questions than go over it again. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
Righty ho. So councillors, questions of Hugh and or Don. Tamer.
Morning, Hugh and Don. Tamer Alley here. Thank you for your email and the detailed report in addition to the report on the agenda. I guess would like to get a steer from the two of you, because I know this is an issue that you've been driving for some time, of what is your anticipated outcome that you're looking for as a result of this?
The council joined the council mark program, and that's about it, really.
Really.
I guess just looking, if you were looking for a specific purpose from joining the council mark program.
Well, I think that we believe that will assist, obviously, in the overall running, if you like, or operations contribution from outside. It will certainly give the opportunity to be transparent, I guess is the word, to your constituents. But I mean, essentially, the purpose of our exercise here is to get the program incorporated, if you like, in the council's activities.
Right, thank you.
And at the end of the day, we would like to think it will give us a better run. I shouldn't say better run council. That's unfair. Just perhaps a more transparent operation.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Neil.
Hugh, Don, Neil Gillespie here. You would have picked up in the report, and you've acknowledged it, I think, in the paper you've given us, that part of the reason for the recommendation is because of the pressures on the other work that's been done, got to be done, that probably sits over and above business as usual. The cost of doing this, while at $26,000, I think is the number that's bandied about, would seem not great. What would be your view if the costs were actually much greater than that? If you looked at having to bring in other resources to do other work that we're trying to do at the same time while the staff are under constant pressure from external, and I'm saying government in particular, influences over Three Waters, local government reorganisation and RMA reforms?
Well, I think there's two issues there. One is talking about the cost of doing the exercise, which I think we refer somewhere in amongst our comments, is that it can be considered as a cost and nasty, or it can be considered as an investment in the future operation of the thing. So there's two ways of looking at that. But the other thing is, we also mentioned the fact that there's one question is whether you join the program, and secondly is what are the issues involved in doing that, as far as the resourcing. Obviously, the payment of cash is one, to the issues of staff time and things is the other. Now, the only way you're going to get over that is by sitting down and working through it. I don't believe you should just say, oh, it's going to cost too much and walk away from it.
No.
It needs to be worked through with the staff and councillors, and maybe some outside input.
It certainly wasn't suggesting that the cost was a factor on its own, but it's about the workload of the council as such. So can I take from what you said that if council was to decide, yes, we'll go with it, timing and detail is still to be worked out?
Yes, so I don't think you can do that in the meeting today, and I think it's suggested in the report that you've been given is one of the options somewhere that a separate meeting be held to consider that sort of stuff. And I think it's obvious there's some issues there that obviously concern the staff and probably something that should concern the councillors as well. How serious those issues are and what the effect is. So for sure, I mean, two decisions. One is to do it, and then two is to work out how it's going to work. I mean, at the end of the day, the cost is obviously a factor, but until you sort out what is needed, the resources that the staff need to complete the program, I don't think you can really say it's going to cost you much.
Okay, thank you. Just one final other question, as much as an observation. In your Appendix 2 options, you've referred to the impact of staff influence and saying it's preferable to avoid recommended options. Is that because you're saying that you don't think the staff should make a recommendation in its report?
I think that's a bit of a philosophy, particularly in this one here, where it's largely to do with staff, the review. So personally, I find it a bit odd that they're making a recommendation that's going to affect them to a large extent. I would have thought that the issue is for the councillors to decide, and that they should be deciding which is the appropriate option.
Yeah, which is what we do. Obviously, we get a recommendation and we decide what to do, whether we support it or not. But yeah, thank you for clarifying.
Anything else, Ian?
Yeah, hi, Hugh and Don. Ian Cooney here. You mentioned that your primary purpose of wanting the council mark to get underway was transparency. Are you able to be more specific about what areas of council you think need to be more transparent?
Probably could, but I prefer not to. I mean, so far in our submissions, we've avoided getting to individuals or personnel or whatever, and I think it's best to stay that way. We think that there are, and this is probably going right back to the start of it, was that there are some things that happen that we don't think are good, and this is one way of hopefully finding out about them through the review. There was other options, current ombudsman and all this sort of rubbish. I mean, that's just not realistic and not the way that we want to operate. We think that if it's done by an independent authority, that's obviously done it for a number of other councils, that's the way we want to see it.
Any further questions, councillors? No? All right. Thank you very much, Stu and Don. At this stage, that paper is due to be heard at 1:05, available on the live stream, and that is the first one up after lunch. So there's probably some fairly good chance that it'll be approximately then. Obviously, it's a little bit hard to crystal ball gaze, although our governance manager is quite excellent at it. Brilliant. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Have a good rest of the day. And finally, in our public forum, we're going to hear in relation to the smoke-free and vape-free policy we'll deal with later on, Jamie Seymour from the Cancer Society.
Kia ora. Thank you for having me today.
Jamie.
I'm Jamie Seymour. I'm the health promoter for the Cancer Society here in the Central Otago region, and I'm here to talk to you about updates to your smoke-free policy. Tobacco is still the leading cause of cancer deaths in New Zealand. It kills 13 people every day. That's almost the equivalent of an entire rugby team. There is no safe level of secondhand smoke exposure, even outdoors. Significant tobacco smoke effects can occur from more than 10 meters away from a group of people smoking. As I've said to Council previously, the Cancer Society is very concerned that a large cohort of youth have picked up vaping, even when they don't smoke tobacco regularly. A new study of secondary students across New Zealand released by the Asthma and Respiratory Foundation on Monday of this week has found that 20% of students are vaping daily or several times a day, and the majority are vaping with very high nicotine doses. 86% of students who are vaping more than once a day reported they felt addicted to vaping and felt it's having an adverse effect on their health. While vaping is often perceived as harmless by young people, there's increasing evidence showing significant health risks. Vaping with nicotine is consistently associated with depression, ADHD, and conduct disorders in adolescents, and nicotine exposure has been shown to impact learning and memory. We congratulate Central Otago Council on reviewing and updating your smoke-free policy to include vaping, which brings it in line with the Smoke-Free Environments and Regulated Products Amendment Act. Your updated policy will also be in line with the new smoke-free cars legislation that comes into effect on the 28th of November, which makes it illegal to smoke or vape in a vehicle with a child under the age of 18, regardless of whether the vehicle is moving. Council's updated smoke-free policy seeks to discourage smoking and vaping within smoke-free areas by using educational tools such as signage and promotion. Behavioral change requires more than just education. The expansion of smoke-free and vape-free environments is a vital component of a comprehensive tobacco control program. Smoke-free and vape-free environments can help by reducing the visibility of smoking and vaping, which otherwise contributes to smoking initiation, by denormalizing smoking and vaping, especially around children, by supporting those who have quit smoking to remain smoke-free, and by encouraging people to stop smoking. A smoke-free and vape-free policy is about protecting our tamariki from secondhand smoke and vapor and providing supportive environments for those to stop smoking. It's not about banning smoking and vaping. It's about providing increased smoke-free and vape-free outdoor public spaces. It's not about punishing people who are smoke or vape. It's about where they are allowed to smoke and vape and the opportunity they have to be good role models. Smoke-free and vape-free areas are a positive step in normalizing smoke-free and vape-free lifestyles and environments, and no punitive measures need to be taken for those in breach of the policy. This is not about enforcement, as there will be no smoking police patrolling public places. People can be relied upon to act responsibly when it comes to smoking and vaping in public. Smoking also has a number of other negative environmental impacts, such as the littering of cigarette butts and packets, especially in our rivers, harbors, and beaches. So smoke-free policy is also about protecting our natural environment, the mountains, the rivers, the lakes, and the land. The Cancer Society is happy to support Central Otago Council with matters relating to your smoke-free policy, such as the design and location of smoke-free and vape-free signage, as well as around developing a communications plan to promote the policy to businesses in the local community to make sure that the public is informed. Such a plan could include an FAQ document that could be housed on Council's website and used to respond to print or social media. And we can also provide example communications plans from other district councils such as Whangarei. And final, my takeaways that I'd like to leave with you today is that it's important to remember that 87% of Central Otago residents are non-smokers. There is growing strong evidence that vaping and nicotine addiction is starting to control our youth. So by adopting these updates to your smoke-free policy, it's your opportunity to show that Central Otago Council is committed to the government's goal of a smoke-free Aotearoa by 2025. Thank you. Ngā
Thank you, Jamie. Questions, councillors? Jamie, I've got a question that's Tim Cadogan here, the Mayor. You said 87% of Central Otago people are smoke-free. Does that include vaping, or is that only cigarette smoking that are 13% still doing?
So that figures from the 2018 census, which at the time did not include a question about vaping. So that's particularly around tobacco smoking.
Right. Gosh, it's still quite a lot, isn't it? I mean, less than that, but
13% compared to what it was 30 or 40 years ago. We've made great progress, but there still is more progress to be made to get to smoke-free 2025.
For sure. Tamer.
I've just got a quick question out of interest. It's Tamer Ali here. I just wondered what education initiatives will be running in schools to prevent youth from trying vaping and then becoming addicted.
Right. So I can tell you the Cancer Society has had many conversations with the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education, and they realize that there is starting to be a problem in schools, especially secondary schools, with kids vaping either in the school or on the school premises. So they are, from what I understand, putting together some educational campaigns that will be, I don't know the exact timeline, but hopefully in the next year, because they do recognize that this is becoming a growing problem. And especially with the new smoke-free cars legislation, we've heard from GoBus that provides the school busing services around the region that there is also an issue with vaping on the school buses. So we're trying to work with the Ministry of Education and GoBus to, and the schools to make sure that they're educating children that they can't do it on the bus either.
Thank you.
Neil, did you have a question?
No, I just was thinking about smoking on the school bus, and a really sad past, but I will just stop there.
Jamie, do vape, and this is off a little bit on a tangent, but it's just for personal information, do vape products receive the same hefty degree of taxation as tobacco products at the moment?
Not at the moment, no. The excise tax is not par for par.
There would seem to be a place that the government might want to look at itself. It's
Agreed.
not too busy with the rest of the world.
So we really think.
Right, any other questions, councillors? Jamie, the smoke-free paper should come up in about 20 minutes on the public live screen, so hopefully you can join us for that. Thank you for your time and for joining us.
Appreciate it. Thank you. And a big thank you to Rebecca for helping to set this up.
Yes, well done, Rebecca. That's looking forward to the day that we actually have people live with us, but in the meantime, we're doing a fantastic job of making that happen. Like all magic, it looks easy. Stu, Rogan.
Right. Welcome everybody. I'm just trying to find the mouse. I can't find it. Never mind. Section 21.8.2, forming of unformed legal road in Cambria. James is going to speak to that. Welcome, James. And Julie, by the way. Julie?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I'll take the report that was read. As per the earlier written submissions of the applicant and neighbouring parties, council received a request for survey on behalf of the employer, Cambria Hills, to form a section of unformed legal road corridor. The process to form an unformed legal road corridor is described within Section 9 of Council's roading policy, and that also explains the delegated authorities for approving such applications. In this case, because the applicant and the neighbouring property couldn't come to mutual agreement, the process, the delegated authority process then falls to council, John White controls roading manager. Hence the reason for the report put forward. So the recommendation from the council's officers put forward in this report is to approve the request to form the unformed legal road, which is for the purpose of providing property access for the applicant, with the conditions as set out in Section 9 of the council's roading policy along with the report. The reasoning for council officer's recommendation is based on the following factors. Council's good faith, illegal felons that are unaffected of consent or illegal road corridor in order to provide property access. But providing property access is an appropriate reason, allowing the formation of an unformed legal road corridor, and the application aligns with the expectations set out in Section 9 of the council's roading policy. And I welcome any questions relating to this report.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No, Tracy.
In the report, it says that the eligibility for the road going forward in the future is going to be on the applicant. How do you propose doing that? And how do you propose that? Is that going to be attached to the applicant's title? And what if the applicant is not the landowner going forward?
I think, in Ben's due raised the point in his earlier submission around should it be held with the applicant, but for generally probably not no responsibility to lie with the landowners using that section of road corridor.
That might be said. That's not an uncommon situation in Central Otago. I think about 4,000 kilometres of formed roads. We only maintain 1,900 kilometres. It's not an unusual situation that roads formed within formed corridors that are maintained by landowners for their property access. Council has a policy on when it will consider an application for the maintenance of a road, and that requires more than 5 properties to be using that road to do property access, and then the applicants are required to construct the road to that required standard as we can and that's a common around New Zealand.
Julie.
How's this standard monitored? Who oversees
Maintaining that standards. So we don't oversee those standards. It's up to the property owner. If they're happy driving on a rough road to get access to their property, then that's kind of their call. If they want a higher standard, they'll pay for it to get graded more often or undertake it work themselves. We don't oversee that. We only monitor the condition of the roads that councils got on its maintenance list.
I've got a map up, Neil. I just wondered that comment that you made earlier about the road prior to where it joins on and what the status of that is.
Oh, so if you are looking at the map, we're 135 Cambrians Road, and you carry on the left of 149, be a right, which seems to be the access up through 197 into the applicant's property. If you look at the last portion of that, it's not on the legal road alignment. So I guess that just gives me the opportunity to clarify with James that I'm not just making that up, am I?
No, the first section of the, so the overall length the applicant's asking for, the first portion of the unmaintained roads reserve is actually formed for the use of access to Mr. Caden's property. This is essentially an extension of that, and it's currently unmaintained.
What I was talking about was the actual access, current access to Cambrian Station. There is a legal road, Cambrians Road goes to it, but actually the last section, the road doesn't follow the formation, it's on private land.
As far as I'm aware.
And that means that ultimately you could say, well, someone's got to reform that road, and an application could be for here, which I know is not to the actual house and stuff, but it's for a different purpose, but equally it could also be to the other piece of land. So just to clarify two things is that if this goes ahead, then I understand how the maintenance works, and that's pretty standard, and we'll have to find a mechanism so that's quite clear to the current and future owner of this bit of land. And I think it does concern the neighbour that he might be in for some maintenance and he can't see why it would, because as you can see, he's got to use it. But do they have to fence it, or if it needs fencing, the affected landowner will be the person that have to do it, so the neighbour would have to pay for it?
The costs, as per the section 9 road policy, the cost of formation are covered by the applicant. If that requires fencing, as I understand it, would be the responsibility of the applicant.
Sorry.
We have following road policies, so I'm quite familiar. Whereas James is picking it up, and there's about 30 different policies and then road policies where James is intimately familiar with every single one of them. There's a separate policy for fencing roads. The councillor will be aware of a previous situation where that came from council in the Marion Point Road area. And so we have a policy around who's got the responsibility for these. So that cost for fencing a road typically falls on the landowner who owns the land, who's raising the road, who is benefiting from.
That would be the neighbour in this case, and that reflects our policy and maybe or may not be fair. But
so can I just clarify, the people who are doing the subdivision development would pay for the fencing on the bit of road that they're trying to use, or the other way around? It is the other way around.
No, it's that so it might not even be their land that's passing through, it might be another person. It's that person's responsibility to fence the road.
It's what happened at the Marion Point Road one. Exactly that was, it goes through land that there's no, it was a formed, unformed paper road, and the person getting the benefit is the person that pays for the cost of the fence, because they get the benefit of, otherwise the animals roam across the road. So
as opposed to the people get the benefit of being able to do the subdivision. There's no fairness in this.
Well, this is not about a subdivision. This is about forming a road. So the subdivision to me is actually absolutely irrelevant and a red herring to this. This is about forming a road, which actually will give formed legal road access to this property. What they then use it for, I think, is actually not what we get to decide. It's not for us to worry about. So it does mean that there's probably 1.2 kilometres of fencing for the neighbour if he wants to fence the legal road from his property.
So we don't typically require landowners fence.
No.
What we have the ability to decide whether a gate or a cattle stop can go on a road. And if you don't have a gate or a cattle stop, and I want to off to someone else's property. So council doesn't require landowners to fence, but it will say we won't allow cattle stock, which then requires the
Anyone else?
I hadn't got to my question because I got diverted, and there's two, and I've forgotten one of them. There were both things that the second speaker, Thomas, raised. Firstly, he doesn't want a cattle stop, he wants a gate because he's got horses. Yeah. What do we do about that?
So the applicants actually need to put like gates beside the cattle stop as a means to getting horses around if they want to transition through.
All right.
So there was a provision put into place.
Okay.
It was noted in the report as well, but yeah.
So we need to perhaps add that in for clarity?
It's written within the policy.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And the second one, and I think it may have been answered through the course of the discussion, is that he didn't want the formed road to be formed if the subdivision went ahead, but the subdivision's irrelevant to this because it's a legally unformed road that can be formed through the proper process, regardless of what the end result is.
That's correct. And the subdivision side of things is completely separate sound.
Okay, thank you.
Clarifies. You've done try one against the other.
I guess
That's what was something he wanted, my reading it was he wanted. Right, what say. The subdivision consent being given, then that would trigger the road, but as Bill said, it's a complete separate matter, got nothing to do with what he wants to use that land for in the future. Yeah. Yes.
I just wanted to check on the status of it, if it's becoming a formed legal road around liability, if there are no fences and the stock wandering, if people are tiki-touring down the road, as people are prone to do in our district.
Yeah.
And hit his horse, say, that happens to be on the road.
So that's all detailed within the road policy and the fencing policy.
I think if there's a cattle stop, that helps that.
Yeah.
Because that if you become people like to close gates, open the gate to go through and then they close it and you stop it, that's but if you've got a cattle stop gate beside it, then I think that's.
And I guess if you're a legal boundary, it's up to you to fence your legal boundary to the council to form unformed road in, if you road in, if you worry about the stop. The landowner.
Just with regards to that cattle stop, horses, if they do try and have a crack at the cattle stop, it doesn't usually end well, which could be why he was concerned about that. That would be, I'd say, the issue. So whether there's a gate beside it or not, that would probably be where he coming from. And I'm making a presumption here that there is when he bought property, the title actually had the road reserve noted on it. So it was always there, and that's part of what he bought. So.
Anyone else?
Yes, sorry. Just, Tamer, you were talking about the stock control issue and the liability for that.
Mm.
And I would assume that it could mean that if you were driving that legal road and stock caused an accident, damage to your vehicle because it wasn't contained within its property, then you as the person who suffered damage or your insurance company could actually take an action against the person whose stock it was for not containing their stock.
That would be my concern.
Yeah, but that's why I understand how it would work. But I hark you back to Linda's past, not too many years ago, maybe it's more than I care to remember, when there were cattle stops there and cattle stops there and there wasn't a fence anywhere in between it. So the reality is that there is an issue if the owner of the property either side of the road that's to be formed or proposed to be formed, that there may be some obligations on that owner in terms of controlling their stock. And that's not something that we control. There are issues I would imagine that are to do with something to do with the roading regulations and rules, doesn't matter whose road it is. And it's more of a civil matter, but I don't know that, again, it's probably not for us. We've got some policies about who does it and how it happens, but we don't actually make it happen. That's a risk that the adjoining owner will have to consider. And as Tracy said, they bought the property knowing there's an unformed road there, and you can never assume that that will never be formed.
Anyone else? Option one. Option one. The report we received and request a So form illegal road property, what it says, the following application terms and conditions. Can I second that? Tracy, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thanks, Jane.
Alrighty, Stephen.
Okay, welcome everybody. First up, we have item that's on 21.8.3, page 33, eyesight New Zealand Future Network Proposal, and Dylan Rush will be speaking to this. Welcome, Dylan.
Thank you.
Right.
Well, I'm a mountain bike. Skateboard day.
How old are you?
Yes. According to the doctor, too old to be skateboarding.
I'm gonna have to go to the drop of down.
Actually, I'd use your good right arm as a clocking one for that.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Hit him with
But I have the one from Jenny with me. Instead. So, the report is read. Just to clarify, we're at a point in the national eyesight review process where we're actually non-binding. So today's decision doesn't commit us to anything, but I had committed to in the past when we did our eyesight review that we come back and report to this group and just council and work through with the process of that. Moving forward with non-binding, it will now give us the opportunity to then go forward, understand actually what the implications for council where eyesight functions, and of course we deliver it both grand early and prosper. There are likely to be, or there will be cost implications, but we just don't know exactly what those are yet. So we're looking at a little more time. But of course there has been in the eyesight and there's a lot of information attached in the network proposal documents, and obviously haven't answered questions on those. But of course, we've still got questions in there ourselves, which we'll seek to clarify before we come to council with a binding decision, which they've actually indicated to us at the stage is likely to be late November, which of course won't make any council meeting time, so we'll be pushing back and saying we won't be making it until we get it back in front of yourselves. So today I'm just seeking support for the recommendation to go with a non-binding agreement to move forward in the proposal.
Thanks, Don. Questions? Surely. Tracy first.
Just under the licensing agreement, I guess the big thing that our community can understand when they're looking at this is that if in fact when you talk about preferred suppliers competing against Central Otago suppliers, that's something that I think needs to be very carefully. I don't know how that will happen, but will be a big concern for people in Central Otago, making sure that what we do is actually keep as local as possible.
That's one of the issues that we get compromised. And it's there. It wasn't selling local in the region, so we will make it.
I have the same sort of concerns as Tracy, but then also some stuff around it. They talked about presenting an inconsistent visitor experience quite a few times in there, but aren't all our current sites overseen by one person anyway? From council.
Ours is the localised.
Ours is in Central Otago, all have the same person overseeing. So we would then be delivering what I would consider to be a very consistent experience across the region anyway. And then they talked about IT and security, saying not signing might be costly to set up independent systems, but we're going to be doing this anyway to comply with privacy requirements. So
correct. Yeah.
I didn't see a lot of benefit in it for us. However, I guess there's not any fish hooks in a non-binding look and see approach.
We're trying to find out a bit more.
I there is a benefit in having that nationally recognised branding system across all information things. Yeah. So you've got a differentiation between what could be the perception of an unofficial information centre as opposed to the official information centre. And that'll be teased out in the working. So I'm totally supportive of the recommendations is outlined because it at least progresses it and doesn't bind us to anything, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had a question myself, actually. So there's a statement in there, a non-profit operating model should be considered totally acceptable. Okay, I can go along with that, but there must be a point where you would say, well, hang on a minute, the impact on the ratepayers is too great.
Yeah, and that's part of, that is part of the next paper that will come to you, because we certainly have concern about the impact on the ratepayer. We've obviously got a targeted rate that funds both the RTO and the eyesight, and is to fund these two things. And in of course, and it means something's got to give in another area to keep these things out, because they will continue.
Weighing up what the greater good is.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
So I was just, it's a little bit aside from this, but without having Alice background and Cromwell and Alex, have they been missed? Have been adapted? Should we know?
It's an interesting question. We get zero feedback from our community in terms of eyesight, and I think the gate has done a really good job at helping build.
Is still needed.
Well, so the gate does provide that, and it's an MOU with council to deliver. And the brand. No, it's actually pharmacy at the moment, and yeah, there's an opposing group that had wanted to write that. Significant strong feedback from tourism operators weaning on that, and we're missing the listeners. Yeah, this world has changed, obviously, and the user of an eyesight isn't really in the region at the moment, because the best people don't tend to use eyesights. So until the world reopens, we may not really truly know, but then technologies come along there as well. So the relevance of eyesights is really questioned.
And that's why it's been a national review.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not true, because, 15 years ago when I was managing eyesight, you were busy answering questions which people now just,
Yeah.
No.
I know it's part side from the stuff.
It's been around still, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I just wondered what the feeling of the sector is on their ability to obtain that funding from government.
The board of the Visitor Information Network feel relatively confident. So they've had conversations in advance of getting commitment from the different owners across the country with MB, and MB has been positive in their response, although not committed at this stage. And I guess until it goes in front of the minister, they won't really get it. Yeah.
Further questions? No, everyone's happy. I think Marty's moved that. Is that correct? Tony second. All in favour?
Aye.
Against, there, carried. Thank you, Don. Next item on the agenda, 21.8.4, page 132, is smoke free and vape policy update. Alex Broker is going to speak to us. Welcome, Alex.
We've got the updated smoke-free and vape-free policy today. It's a 3-year review of the policy. So it was last reviewed in 2018 and it's been in place for well over a decade now. It looks like council has supported smoke-free Aotearoa 2025. That's the government plan to set less than 5% of people choosing to smoke by 2025, and we've supported that for well over a decade, basically since its inception. There's been a couple of changes to the legislative environment since we last reviewed this policy. The head one with Smoke-Free 2025 is an action was developed earlier this year with specific actions. None of those actions were directly within council, so our role remained the same that you from Jamie today in denormalisation and providing smoke-free areas. Vaping and the sale of vape products were restricted under the Smoke-Free Homes and Regulated Products Vaping Amendment Act in 2020. And through the LCP process this year, we heard in a joint submission to the Cancer Society and the Southern DHB with a series of recommendations that would assist in cancer prevention. Most of them we have covered in the policy, but the real key one there was to include vape-free areas. So the review of the policy is taking that on board. There was also quite a bit of work on the text of the policy to simplify it, and instead of explaining government we've also specified a 10-metre boundary around playgrounds. This is essentially the case anyway. Most playgrounds are well within a council reserve where smoking is banned. Specifically specifying that when on council land, just means an extra definite education and outdoor dining on council land is already smoke free. There were 2 further actions that were requested by the health agencies to support the policy that in the policy that we work outside it. The first is the communication, so to work together on a communication campaign that our team will do. And the second is to update our signage, which we'll go through the renewal process, adding the vape-free logo to the existing smoke-free logo. Changes today.
The first vape-free sign will be it's got a cigarette, an old-fashioned cigarette at the top of the new e-cigarette if you want to use it. Yeah, so they'll get this sign if we update.
Yes. And just for your interest, after hearing this question of wanting to reread the commercially 2025 and didn't include any further taxes on vaping.
Thank you. Questions? Tracy.
Maybe just more a comment, and especially after what Jamie said this morning, was that there isn't going to be smoke police around. Sometimes I wonder about having, you've got a policy, it's for the greater good, there's no way of enforcing it. And I wonder at what point it was, like, I'm just in a playground, for example, you had a parent who's vaping and another parent who's very not happy about that, and you get complaints to our service centre, so what are you going to do about that? And just wondering how that would be managed.
We do have an enforcement process, so we can enforce it wherever in this situation. It's probably the area that we're concentrating on the power enforcement more on my work program. But the strength of these policies is less in enforcing individual examples or behaviour overall.
Policy works because the awareness of council areas being smoke free, I'm talking like from an event manager perspective. We've seen this vaping and smoking events because we're using signage and that and all the PR and publicity. And if you light up next to don't smoke, please, and we'll take that away somewhere else. Because that public education things, and people feel empowered now because of that policy to actually turn around to a vape or a smoker and say, excuse me. And that's the court of public opinion.
More science. Personally, I think that more science don't necessarily mean that people lock in. I'm not sure about all signs, but the signs at the moment are not appropriate. So, Stephen,
just I'm playing devil's advocate because I support this and I haven't heard anything so far today that will change my view. I'm simply recalling probably 3 years ago when we did our smoke-free policy, and it was suggested then that we bring in vape-free at the same time, but because we hadn't consulted on it, we couldn't do it. And we're not consulting on it now, which seems to skip a step. I'm not troubled by that, I want to emphasise that, but I'm just wanting us to consider our significance and engagement policy and make sure we're all comfortable that given we did consult on smoking, that we're comfortable on not smoking on vaping. I think the information we got from the smoking will tell us enough about the vaping, but I just want people to put their minds to that.
And then Random Start Devices changes that change in legislation on the house device.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to support that because to me, that is the change.
Yeah.
And I think what we bought ourselves was the time from when we didn't include vaping because we didn't know enough.
Yeah.
And dare I say, the officials didn't know enough either. Who knew it wasn't going to be just a phase, just like whatever the one was before that, or I don't know. So yeah, whatever. Yeah, and so I think that there is plenty of evidence, and I have no qualms. And if someone wants to criticise us for doing that, then rock up with the evidence, and we would review it again. But in the meantime, I think this is a great opportunity for us to take the lead. Yeah. And do the right thing, because it really troubles me. And this is, preaching to the converted, being an ex-smoker, but to hear that there are people now that are vaping that have never smoked. Yes. And as much as I was a good smoker, I'm not even tempted to try a vape. No. I don't trust myself. Yeah. So that's scary.
Okay.
I just have to, what are the rules around having provide smoking areas? Do we still, do we have to provide smoking areas?
We don't.
It's probably hospitality do still have to provide.
Licensed premises.
The licensed premises, and that's up.
Okay.
I'm going to move A and B, Stephen.
Oh, second that, Stephen. Okay, so yes. Okay, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda.
Not smoking too.
21.8.5, page 146, proposal to revoke part of the Greenway Reserve. Yeah. And Cromwell, Gordon Bailey's going to speak to us. I guess that those on the hearings panel are probably well up to speed on this.
Mr. Chairman, just before the report comes, is that given that I chaired the hearings panel, I'm not going to withdraw because it's one of those situations where we have two hats and we have to wear them. Yeah. It would be wrong, I think, for us to have to withdraw from this item because we are on the hearings panel and made the recommendation to the council. Or we'll be probably be advocates for that recommendation because of what we've been through. Yeah. And that's why we've been given that job. So I'm not going to withdraw, but I'm not going to say much else. And if there's any questions or comments required.
Me neither. That's the three of us. So the floor is yours.
Thanks. Just a correction. I need to point out first those corrections to the minutes of the hearings panel on the 5th of October. Irene and Dave Wallace were left off those who were in attendance. We note that I get reflected next time the hearing panel meets and attendance.
So I've only got hearings panel minutes of 14th of September.
At the bottom, it's in small print.
I
meet and reconvene on Tuesday. It's near the bottom of the page.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Reconvene was what confused. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, thanks. So this matter has been before the council previously, who passed a resolution to notify the process to uplift to revoke the reserve status over part of the local people reserve on the Wayman Drive Greenway next to New World to enable the New World Cromwell site to expand. So this has been through this public process. Hearing panel made their recommendation, which is before you for consideration. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I don't see too many, surely.
Well, quite a few things that food staffs were required to do for the neighbours. Who monitors how well it's done and when it's done and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so there's some of those things will all relate to the to this process.
So do we get, these things, do they get to tell you this or
Give you the opportunity to tell us if they're not satisfied, if they're not satisfied.
allow it as punished and okay.
Yes, and most of it's around fencing, which is part of the commitments from foodstuffs, and then there's the landscaping and the other litigation. Those pedestrian crossing and stop signs and that sort of outside. Related, I guess, but they'll be all part of our overall package that the council will monitor that those things are done and the neighbours are happy.
Any further questions?
I'll move recommendation. I'll second it.
Right, okay. A, B and C? Okay. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, and that's Stephen. Thank you. Neil.
I'd like to note that it's 11:45 and the agenda says plan change 17, 11:45. Can I keep to that time? Item 21.8.6 is plan change 17 GIS mapping plan change, and there's a report there that I believe Anne is going to tell us all about. Your hands, anything you need to tell us that's not there?
So, the plan change 17, just to refresh your memories, was to tidy up our inconsistencies we found with that paper mapping of a district plan so that we could put it into the GIS and some anomalies that was fixed. So ultimately, put the district plan into an E-plan format, which is required under the national planning standards. We received submissions, all of the support from Heritage New Zealand and the Otago Regional Council, and none of them wanted to be heard and support their submissions. Basically, the message was given with it. So it's pretty encouraging. So under the Act, we're not required to hold a hearing if nobody wishes to be heard. So we opted to just go straight to council. To notify them, on the things done.
And the key thing was, if I've got it right, is that the three submitters made no suggested changes, just said tick, move, go. Right.
I mean, the main changes we were making were around the location of high voltage transmission lines. So we used the transpire layer, so they were very happy with that. Heritage New Zealand, we relocated a few of their buildings that were incorrectly mapped and that ended up on properties and things. So we just tidied up so they were entirely happy about that as well. And ORC are very supportive for us moving to a new plan.
Cool. Recommendations A, B and C, someone want to move?
Yes.
Joe, second. Councillor Kearney, Councillor Jeffrey.
Can I just make a comment?
Yes, you may. I haven't,
And it's not.
I haven't put it yet, so it's a good idea. Please do.
Well, it's actually about a statement. Just the idea, the use of NPS in documents like for council documents. So we've got NPS for national planning statements, NPS for national policy statements. How do you not get it all confused when we do things like acronyms?
Do we use national policies? Well, I don't think I've done that.
Not on here.
Okay. Normally when we refer to the national planning standards, it could just be NPS, but what most planners have taken to doing with national policy statements is to use the remainder of the acronym and their titles, like national policy statement for Indigenous livelihoods to be ID at the end. It is tricky, it's confusing.
I'm also thinking of people outside of here reading.
Sure.
Picking up NPS and thinking.
Hopefully we haven't done that, but I'll be really.
No, you haven't.
Thank you. It's
Especially on biodiversity.
And water.
Was a comment of that?
No,
Just a.
That's fine. And it's a valid comment to make, because I think the first time we saw it in that context, we went, oh, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
Clarified for you?
Yes, perfect. Thank you very much.
I'm looking for a new mover of the motion because my mover has left the room and I can't.
I'd like to move it as I did the first time, and I'll second it like I did the first time. Councillor Gillespie. Thank you.
Just because you had the loudest voice doesn't mean to say that you get to go first, you know.
But I was first.
But anyway, moved by Councillor Duncan, seconded by Councillor Jeffrey. Anybody want to speak any more before I put the motion? All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Move to 21.8.7, which is a report on RMA reform updates. My left or right?
Right.
Okay. Louise and Anne, please tell us what you need to tell us.
So this is really just an update to where the RMA reform has got to, and as you all know, it's David Campbell's report and he's not here. So Anne and I are happy to answer any questions anybody has on the report and where it's got to. Oh, just to add, following the select committee, the report has actually been released earlier this week, the full report back, which is a significant report. We haven't had time to review it yet, but we can circulate it to you.
Is that the report that says how good the submitters that spoke were?
I'm not sure whether it actually says that, but it is about the submissions.
I can't imagine it wouldn't. Two exceptional standout presenting.
The Environment Court, the Environment Committee has released, as Roy said, the report came out on late Monday, so this is it here. So there's a bit of digesting to happen in there. So they made quite a number of changes and clarifications around, which I think has come out of this process. And while we haven't had a chance to have a decent look at it yet, there are some changes around that, more clarity around representation, which I think are quite helpful. So we'll work through that and guess we'll look back at some point. The recommendation is that they've redrafted a bill. So the bill will go through the select committee process and we will get another chance to submit on it.
And I think another point is that the RM reform subject will be at the next mayoral forum, so there'll be an opportunity to discuss it there as well.
Okay. Do you think we're going to get a situation where we get enough time for whatever the next steps are for council to be involved, or we're going to be pushed again like we have been previously to get stuff done out of sequence with our meetings, especially with Christmas coming up?
I think the pace of reform is such that it will be very tight.
Okay.
This is the one you spoke to, isn't it?
I believe it's the
yes, that's right.
And what they call it, they had a name, official name for it, didn't they? Because it wasn't the exposure draft, because it wasn't the select committee we spoke to, it was an environment committee, so it wasn't part of the select committee process. Sort of, it's the early drafting version. It's sort of like we did with our district plan, where you have the discussion documents before you go to the next level.
Yes, yeah. So the report that's been released is from the environment committee, which is so they've had a good look at what the ministry have drafted and what the submissions that were received. There's over 3,000 submissions received, although lots about trees in Auckland. Interesting. And so what they've come back with is a draft bill for the select committee. So they're asking Parliament to accept that, and if they do, then we will get another bite at it, albeit a very little bite, as the rest said, it will be really tight.
Some might say that other government departments and organisations could look at the reforms they're proposing and follow a similar process. Did anybody mention Three Waters?
No.
So I guess just to remind Council that Councillor Gillespie spoke to the council submission and the Mayor spoke to the Otago Southland submission that we were a part of.
I'd just like to comment that I had come off the Zoom meeting, I knew it was on and I thought I'd check, and I got there just in time to see you speak. You did a brilliant job from all of us, on behalf of all of us, thank you.
Actually, who did the brilliant job was David Campbell and those that assisted him. You know, the submission that we had lodged and what I got to speak to, that was all done by council staff, David and the rest of the team to actually do it. So I just was the messenger. My job was easy by comparison. Yeah, so we were lucky to have the resources within our organisation to actually put together what I thought was a really good submission, and I'm really heartened that they've listened to someone, whether it was us or not, it doesn't matter, but at least they've listened to someone.
I think that there's quite a bit more clarity is what I understand, so we'll work our way through it, but then I guess you guys know, hopefully, I'd like to think that we wouldn't be having this committee for Christmas, but who knows, they're on a pretty tight to get this moving. So,
any other questions of the report? Everybody happy? I'll move that it be received. Someone like to second that?
Yes, I'll second that.
Stephen? All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you.
Oh.
Nigel?
I'm 5 minutes early, Nigel.
Chair, I'd like to note that the time is 11:55.
Duly noted.
Thank the previous chair. And item number 21.8.8, options for disinfection of community water supplies. And we have Ian Filster. Welcome, Ian. And Judy.
Good morning. Basically, I'll take the report as read and talk through a couple of the key points that the report highlights. So currently, our disinfection processes use liquid chlorine. The report indicates that there is a range of limitations on the current reliance, including some requirements to meet the requirements of the Hazardous Substances and New Organism Act requirements. So we're currently undertaking a survey of our current treatment plant to see what those potential upgrades are required. We will bring a report back to this table in early 2022 with what the implications of those requirements are. But as we come to upgrade our water treatment plants, it does give us the ideal opportunity to convert to chlorine gas disinfection, which has a number of advantages that has been outlined in the report. Basically, it provides an opportunity to add a reasonably significant amount of resilience to our water supplies. So I'm probably happy to leave it there and happy to take any questions.
Ian, questions? Stephen.
Being that I live in the Tiviot Valley, what's so different about Roxville that can't have been included? Why does it require a separate report?
Because it's not in the current treatment plant upgrade program, so the others will get picked up in the, but Roxville's not going program, so we need to go back to.
Taste is the gas delivery. I mean, the taste would be better for our community.
It shouldn't make a great deal of difference in terms of taste.
No difference in terms of taste as far as.
No, but in terms of reliability, that's where the advantage is.
Oh, sorry, Neil. Just to follow up on the question about taste, my understanding was that the reason we taste chlorine in our water is because actually it's detected something that needs treating. If there's nothing that needs treating, taste is probably well not there, or have I got that wrong?
That's what we were told by Jim Bray.
Yeah. So I guess what that means is that the taste won't change. The only reason you taste chlorine is because your water needs treated.
Or if you get the dose a little bit.
Well, yeah. We shouldn't.
And just fill your jug up, and keep the jug in the fridge. It goes away in half an hour.
Oh.
So that time is
Yes.
we're very good, I guess. So that we.
So I could pick up shitters.
When you let the water settle, the chlorine, is the evaporate? No, it's released. Is what it's saying. So because the gas stores the chlorine for longer, will that time in the jug be longer?
No, it won't make
No,
any
it won't make any
difference.
difference
No,
to the actual-
it's that the storage is around.
Nigel, given we have supply issues sometimes at the moment, and given a lot of the councils may now be looking at their need to stick to at least some of the drinking water standards, those supply issues, if we stick to liquid, could become worse potentially.
I think we're looking at it Yes, well, it's a struggle at times at the moment. I think we've identified there's a risk there. And the other thing we're identifying as a risk is really the health and safety requirements that happen at the moment. So I think, we're seeing that there's a change in philosophy around the management of water supplies and making sure that these sorts of things just aren't anymore, and that there is a step change in making ensuring that we've always got adequate supplies of chlorine to continue treating the water, and also to improve the operational efficiency from a cost perspective for operators, and also from a safety perspective.
To sum it up, it's almost a no-brainer, isn't it? I'll be honest.
I'd agree with that. It's quite straightforward. The advantages being listed of being more reliable in the disinfection process, adding resilience, the increased, the fact that gas does not age and suffer from temperature fluctuations, and significantly lower operational and whole of life costs, and more readily. So we have recommendations A, B, C, and D. Do I have a move up? Ian, too late, Stu. And second by Stu. Are there any further questions? If not, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, Ian. Wait, am I doing this?
Yeah.
Good. Waste services review.
No,
you're not. You're doing it.
I'm doing it.
Good.
I was so determined today that I wasn't going to cut anyone else's sandwiches that I cut mine.
Well, I was trying to do this just to show my favour.
I can't win. Sustainable practices.
Oh, I'd like to comment.
Hey? I've done so well. I'll forget when it gets to councillor owners.
Here's what I'm looking forward to.
Okie dokie. So, welcome, Quentin and Julie. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you. I'll take the report as it's been used. So we have a report for information with around the feedback from the waste services feedback. We had a very high level of engagement from the community with 870 responses received. So this feedback will be incorporated with information from our early supplier briefings, and also with the new central government guidelines through the work on the waste strategy and emissions reduction plan. And that the next step of this will be the procurement plan coming to council on the December meeting at that next meeting. So there was quite a mix in regards to the curbside collection options preference across all three options. We also received positive feedback around the current operation of the transfer stations with, as you can see, high usage through those weekend days, and feedback around respondents wanting to see the operating hours of transfer stations set as they are. There was strong views on a Cromwell reuse shop from the Cromwell community and the ability to have a similar service to what's offered in Alexandra. And then we had some general feedback, for instance, around the blue bin, which was a bit mixed as well in regards to wanting it to be collected more and collected less. So yeah, if there's any questions or any further comments, I'll hand back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Quentin. The first comment I'll make before I come to council is that 870 eclipses the 848. I think we got submissions for our LTP. And I had an opportunity recently to speak at Zone 6. We had 3 minutes each to talk about things that were going well, and I spoke about the engagement of our community. That's 1 in 27, which is just staggering. It's staggering beyond all belief. This isn't a controversial hot topic. It's just almost business as usual. It is business as usual, and yet we get 1 in 27. And that's full credit to the people who put these surveys together that make them palatable to the general public. I thought this one was exceptionally well done. And also to our public, who I believe can make the claim to be the most regularly committed to letting their councillors know what they think across the whole of the country. So well done, everyone concerned. Right, councillors, questions? Shirley?
If people chose a smaller bin, size bin, and they have reduction.
Yes.
That incentive be put?
So the incentive is around reducing the waste, and there's a value in that decrease. We are offering a smaller option for the glass bin through that, and with regards to recycling, due to the way recycling is, it's not a very compact level. Offering that larger size bin wouldn't really result in any significant reduction in cost.
If you can help out with it.
If I can just add, one of our key strategic drivers is to reduce the amount of waste going to landfill. So we have to be cognizant when we're looking at bin configurations that if we cheaper cost if you pay for a smaller yellow bin, they might just fill up more of their red bin. So we always, smaller red bins are good, but we want people really using the yellow bins. So we did actually offer a smaller yellow bin as an option because of that reason.
Yeah, that's more red bin.
I think that will come back to council for consideration. It's just being very wary of it. Potentially incentive for a smaller mixed recycling bin that where are they going to put where might they put their recycling instead? Overall, it might end up costing them more because the cost of the service.
Because we're all going to reduce, not. And the production of education is taken over when we took away from. Right, so what are we doing in that space for educating people to actually not produce the waste in the first place or not?
So that's just ongoing for so the internal waste minimisation activity that we operate as through our team. So that's goes in line with this contract, all this work. We're just continuing that work outside of this process, but it all ties back in together. We've been just recently supporting the building industry with taking builders in Central Otago to construction and demolition workshops around. So we do have programs running continuously around the waste education.
We could possibly share that information though a little bit more transparently. So perhaps what we could do is, and not, this is the team's pretty busy, but maybe at the January meeting, do just a report for information outlining what all the pieces of work are that are going on in the education space, because I think there's a lot happening that people are probably not.
Want people to be aware of how much paper and the like. So because Christmas one's been a bit, maybe we could put out something just like people.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe we did some messaging last year around sustainable.
And I just want to do that.
What?
Yes.
The latest Facebook post from staff.
Oh.
Yes, Brian.
Stephen. So just a question on the bottles and what we're going to be doing with them. Should we still be spending resource on encouraging people to reduce the quantity of glass that they're producing?
Reduction is always the first measure of value because there's still a cost associated with anything we do in terms of processing and the reuse of that item. The ability to crush and reuse the glass is a significantly better alternative than landfill. However, not creating or not bringing that product into your house and in the first place is the absolute best thing we could encourage. However, we do have a sustainable solution for processing and reusing that glass in the second instance.
And then I was actually thinking, I wonder why some people would like a smaller one and some like a bigger one. So
it would just be around consumption.
Yes, steady. Neil, big bottles.
Neil. Cans in. You made an observation about Queensbury with 55 surveys completed, so I'm assuming that's Queensbury people saying that they want to be in on the collection.
Correct. And there was significant feedback around their responses. Made up quite a large portion of the option 2 and wanting the weekly red bin collection.
Oh, so they want it in and they want it weekly.
So through our supplier briefings and the procurement planning, we're looking at options around how we enable collections at Queensbury and how that might look and how that might work.
Did anything come out in the survey that suggested that, other than Queensbury, that we needed to go further afield anywhere else? Was there any outliers?
No. Areas such as Terrace and Patio that do have a solution, although it's not a curbside solution, with a bag system and taking it, commented that typically does work reasonably well for them, and they do like the status quo. However, we are looking at options through the procurement of better administration of those facilities in terms of not knowing what the solution is, but it might be a coin operated latch bin compacting container or something more user friendly than grabbing a key from a shop, taking it, unlocking, putting it.
So looking at the paper that was going to come to us, are you going to look at those optional areas currently that we've got in terms of those that will opt in or opt out? Are we likely to change, have a mindset change in that from the survey results or from any other reason that you're looking at?
Probably not, no. There isn't, the feedback was positive around how this sort of terrace patio operates as well, so that there's no, potentially no extension of service in those areas.
Yeah.
That will all come back to council for its input.
But I think just to clarify, where the likes of, say, Logan, where there is a rural residential service, those rural residential services, they are not done. You don't have to be in it.
No.
We're not proposing to change that.
Because I guess the question about Queensbury will it be treated like that, or will it be you're all in because the truck's going to go there? If it's going to go there, then we're going to make it worthwhile.
Yeah. So and that's where there is two options here. There is it's opt-in, but we may not get the value in enough people, or Queensbury can be ring-fenced off the highway because there is it's quite accessible in terms of it's not a spread out spider network like a terrace. Where there's, it's quite isolated. You can ring-fence it quite easily.
And you can drive from one subdivision to the other to do a loop, I think, on one of them. I look forward to the report.
Tim, I noticed you got some feedback on e-waste. Is there anything in your work stream that will be looking to deal with e-waste differently than what happens now?
So currently, Wastebusters is the only acceptor, only place that e-waste can currently be taken. With the option about a reuse recovery facility in Cromwell, we'd be looking through that at what services that could offer to support the district wider, as well as also looking at what services are provided at the Alexandria reuse recovery park and how that could potentially be expanded as well.
Yeah, Stu, and then what does it?
In option 3, would the organics and the green waste be processed together?
Yeah, so the processing, there's lots of different options for processing green waste and processing the green waste and food waste at our house. It all depends on volume, so there's different processing even in the food and green waste combined. So yes, it would be processed together, but what that processing would look like depends on overall volumes, and it would also have considerations into if we were going to look at taking extra food waste, green waste, if there was an opportunity for a regional collaboration in that space.
All right, thank you. This is only going to become more important as time goes on. We've got a new CE in Otago who spoke at the Mural Forum a couple of weeks ago, just in general. And I think I recall these numbers right, that in the course of 10 years, the cost of waste to the council had gone from 5% of its budget to 30%. So that's significant, but in that period of time, they've now got to, due to what the government has said has to be done, only 4% of their waste stream goes to landfill, which is just staggering. And that's the direction we're going on, and so we should. So, yeah, more and more this is going to become, of course, if you lose 30% of your business, it makes it easier for another part to grow, doesn't it? Anyway, we won't go down that road just yet. That's a very good report, thank you. And as a consequence of a very good consultation, as I said, I'll move the report be received.
I'll second it.
Stu will second it. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Aye. Against, that is carried.
Just one thing I will, that report was an excellent report. If we had a chance to make that report on Three Waters, you'd have 870 people from the Minnetonka submitted.
Oh, yeah.
It's not that many there, is it?
On the weekend.
Now we're in an interesting situation, folks, that I did point out to people on our forums specific times that we would get to our next agenda items. And there's not really much else in the public section that we can jump to, so you're going to get a longer lunch break. We will come back.
Why don't you do your governance report, community board, that sort of stuff?
No, we can get that out of the way if you want.
Meeting schedule?
Yeah.
Just a thought. Sorry, just here to help.
Okay, I appreciate as always that you're here to help. Thank you, Neil. We're going to jump to page, well, it's basically probably going to take us 2 minutes, but you're quite right. We'll jump to page 334 and the item on our status reports, which are the Forward Work Programme, the status report, the Chief Executive's Legacy Status Report, Planning and Environment Legacy, Infrastructure Services Legacy, Otago Museum's August report. Take those as a whole. Anyone have anything they wish to comment or raise from any of those reports? I didn't. So on that basis, does somebody want to move to receive those, that report, which is all those reports? Thank you, Martin. Seconded, Stephen. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. We then have on page 410 the minutes of the Vincent Community Board and is it anyone with that?
No, you've got all of them.
I've got all of them. The minutes of all the community boards, and obviously we're just noting them. So any comments, anybody? I'll do them all as one. So no comments on any of those board minutes. Somebody move that we receive those board minutes. Thank you, Ian. Seconded, Nigel. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. And then on page 446, we have the minutes of the assessment committee. Shirley, you chair that. Is there anything you wish to bring to our notice from that?
No, it's always good to get more money.
Great job, isn't it?
Even though we, there were a few items that had to be cancelled of course because of COVID, but
Yeah.
it's swinging along pretty well. And we've got a new member, Tim Rafey, who's
great.
Taking over from Betsy, Betsy driver. Yeah, no, it's really well. We've got another meeting coming up later this month for the sports.
Cool. Is this really from the 16th of March? Of course, that makes sense because the meeting is so far. Cool. Do you want to move those minutes then, Shirley?
Yes.
Do you want to second them, Tony?
Yes, I do.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against, carried. Our next meeting is on the 8th of December.
We got the meeting schedule.
That's good to know.
Oh, we got the meeting schedule.
And the audit and risk.
Oh, yeah. All right, we shall jump our way back to the meeting schedule, which is on page 323, which has the 2022 meeting schedule, which has to be created, fitting in with numerous other things. So I double dare anybody to say they don't like it. Neil?
I don't like it. It is what it is.
It is what it is, yeah. Yeah.
It won't be convenient. It'll be something will fuck up the world, but that's all right.
You just have to move your social engagements, Neil.
Only they were social.
You can't all be here all the time. That's how it is. So do you have to do anything with that?
Just move it.
Just move it, I'll move it. I'll move it and Seymour will second it. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. And you mentioned one other. What did I miss?
The audit and risk minutes.
Who's that?
That was with the underneath the assessment committee.
Right. I'll get there in a moment. Would you give me a page number, please?
452.
452, thank you. So we have the audit and risk committee meetings on page 452, the minutes thereof. Anyone have any? Cheryl?
I was in attendance.
Beg your pardon?
I was in attendance.
You were in attendance.
We'll note that because they haven't actually been approved yet.
Brilliant. Absolutely. Anything else from anybody?
No.
No.
The amendment.
Thank you. With that amendment, it's moved by Stephen, seconded by Seymour. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. And now, because we've got those out the way, we can go for lunch, and we will be back at 1:05 sharp. Thank you, team.
That
was Stephen.
You've got a couple of more topics. You're looking sharp.
Yeah, I didn't want to go on.
I think.
That's too
Because you've got to turn that off.
Crikey, eh? There you go. Rolling fast, nothing.
Yes, isn't technology wonderful?
Awesome.
What's for lunch?
It'll be a week.
Kentucky Fried, I told you that already.
What you asked for, you
I reckon we should have Kentucky Fried for the September meeting next year, just in case.
Yeah. I've been 9 years at council, I've never got a feed of KFC for lunch.
Oh, we can't take things for granted, Stu.
I'm not in the clock these days anyway.
It can be a Christmas lunch.
It could be Chinese.
It's going to be a game of two.
Yep.